Okay, I am just peeking in before we dive into the whole podcast here. But today I interviewed Kate Watt, who is a beautiful member of the Get Your Flow on course community, and she just beautifully shared her story of, going through amenorrhea and going through a disordered relationship with food, and her story of taking these big giant steps into recovery. So it's a super fascinating topic. I'm not going to dive into more of what the conversation is because I think the conversation was just great in and of itself. But I do want to say that I forgot to put the Zoom recording on the setting where you can see both her and I speaking just for the first like 3 minutes. So after about like 3-4 minutes into the podcast, you will finally see me, and then you'll see us both back and forth chatting. So just so you know, because the beginning part's like literally just Kate, but I come on, I promise. But anyways, we're just gonna go into the podcast. I hope you guys enjoy. Make sure that if you are enjoying these podcasts, that you like, you subscribe, you comment down below. Anything to show your appreciation is definitely appreciated. So I hope you really enjoyed the podcast, and I'll just let you dive in. Well, Kate, we just had a fun little banter before I pressed record on the podcast. Kate is a part of the Get Your Flow on course, and a huge part of the course is the community. And Kate wrote something in the community a couple days ago, or maybe it was even just like yesterday, and there was a whole big long thread on it. Everyone kind of chimed in, which I loved, and started saying like their 2 cents or giving advice and helping you kind of work through this question that you had. And I just like looked at it and was like, we're gonna talk. I'm just gonna talk to you in person. So it was fun to just be able to chit chat a little bit before, but it's always really cool to like know exactly what's going on with everyone in the group, because everyone's very vocal and very active and very like, this is what I'm struggling with, or this is my wins, or like this is what's happening. Anyways, so it's really fun, and then it just like makes it seem like we're best friends whenever we get on like a live chat together.
Yeah, totally. It's so much fun. Yeah, and it's so nice. Everyone just kind of like offers their advice, and you just feel so welcome to share like everything that they say, no matter what it is. There's no judgment, and you just totally feel like you're going to kind of get your best friend's advice every time you have a problem.
Yeah, but it's like your best friend who's going through a very similar journey.
Yeah.
So it's really cool. It's like, oh, I understand you. Like my best friends are great, and I go to my best friends for a lot of things. But there's so many things where they just don't understand, because I'm like, you don't own a business. Like, you don't understand what I'm dealing with. Like, you don't have self-employment taxes. You get a W-2. And so it's like, it's nice to tell them, right? It's like, help me, like, or hear me out with this. I'm like being really like, I don't know, I'm very flustered with this like thing, or I don't know how to work through it. And that's always helped. But then like I work with, or I'll talk to my friends who are entrepreneurs who are self-employed, and I'm like, this is what I need help with. The LLC thing is like, I just turned into an LLC finally. So I'm not a sole proprietorship, and it's been like a ton of paperwork and stuff like that. But it's been great to like find those friends who can support me in that. And I feel like stepping into the course community and watching all of you girls come together and support each other on this very topic of like getting your period back, finding food freedom, and like reducing exercise. It's just like so cool to see the type of conversations that come up, because you guys all really understand. And some of you guys are at different levels. Some people have been through recovery for a while. Other people are just starting. And so it's beautiful to see how you can tell when someone's like, oh, I've been through this recently, and I'm giving you that advice back. And it's very just, it's fresh and it's juicy. And I feel like it's really good.
Yeah, no, it's phenomenal. And everyone has like the best advice. And you're so right. Like you don't have to explain yourself to anyone. So you just kind of say your sentence, and then everyone knows the emotions and kind of everything you're feeling. But then they say the perfect thing back. And like I feel so much better every time. So it's really cool, honestly.
Right. I feel like someone could just write in the group chat, like, I ate a donut, ... And everyone will know exactly like what to say to that. Like, 1, wow, that's amazing. 2, how's your anxiety? How did that feel? Like, are you trying to compensate right now? Like, it's really cool. Or it's like, we know what this means. Like,
Yeah, it's like our own little lingo kind of.
totally, totally, totally. I would love to hear, Kate, what drew you, or I should say, what got you to the point where you finally were like, I need community, I need support, I want to be going through a program like this?
Yeah, so I mean, I have kind of like my whole story. Do you want me to share that too?
I
Or
would
just
love for you to.
okay, sounds good. I'll keep it as short as possible. I'm a bit of a talker. So I always grew up in like a wonderful home where kind of, you know, life was just simple. Like we always kind of had, you know, lots of fruits and veggies in the house, but we had lots of chips and like it was just like kind of it was all good. Like it was all about kind of nourishing your body and like feeling good. And like we were all like pretty active, but nothing was ever, you know, in a like a diet sense, or like I never felt insecure or kind of any of those things. But I always knew like I liked to like move. I'm a really energetic kind of body. So I always kind of did lots of sports and like had lots of fun with that. And I love to cook like from a really young age. So I kind of slowly like started to kind of get more into that. And I started to be like, oh, like these foods make me feel good and those sorts of things. So it's kind of started like all at like a really good place. And I was kind of there for about like 2 years, where I could really like I knew like I ate lots of like, you know, vegetables and those kinds of things, but I also ate like lots of, you know, all the
So
goodies.
you mean to tell me it was pretty balanced?
Right. That's the right word.
Great,
Yeah.
great. So you were just balanced. And that's, I want to bring this up for a second because I know, especially in the recovery community, we can really kind of almost talk down upon eating vegetables or talk down upon exercising. I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. It's how it was done that really, really matters. And we don't
Why?
need to look at that and just be like, eating a salad's bad. I'm like, well, no, eating a salad's not bad. Totally destroying your metabolism from over exercising and only eating salads is what's going to be bad and not supportive. So of course, during recovery, we want to be wary of eating way too many salads and not, you know, prioritizing other foods, of course, but it's not like having just a lifestyle of I'm active and I eat a well-balanced amount of food is not a negative thing. I just wanted to put that out there because I think we can sometimes get in our recovery thing of like, we go, you know, super, super anti-diet culture, and we forget that anti-diet culture doesn't mean anti-health, and that we can have an understanding that some of these things are like exercise can be really healthy and beneficial for people. It can also not be. And if you're in recovery, it's not, but it doesn't mean that someone being active is not healthy. And it is a very healthy thing to be out there and to be finding sports and things like that that you love to do to move your body. I just want to throw the 2 cents in there, but
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I was at this place for a while and, you know, like there was never any pull of like, oh, like, you know, I have to come home from school and like exercise or anything like that. Like I would hang out with friends and like, but when the opportunity arose, I would always take it. Um, and then the pandemic hit. And that's kind of where everything went downhill for me, because I went from kind of having these like interests and like knowing I was active and kind of loving these things, and also having kind of all those other pieces to my pie. Uh, and then they kind of took out all of those because we closed schools, we closed like all my sports, we closed like friends, and kind of everything stopped. And I was left with like just kind of me being home and with my family, and you know, both my parents work, so I was just left with like a lot of time on my hands. And to me, that's kind of where it went south, because I had like a few of my interests. Do you want to say something?
well, sorry, no, that's really interesting for what we were just talking about before. Kate's question was kind of, what do I do with my job? It's very like active and I'm out and about, and do I need to stop it for recovery? And I had mentioned that, well, if you stop working, and this is, you got to take this into context. I think Kate's at the point where she can make this really healthy for her, where she can find nourishment and stuff within her working space for what her work is. But I mentioned that, like, okay, but there's one side of the coin that says you stop working, now you're just going to be at home all day and you're going to get really bored. And what happens when we're bored? Oh, let's go on 5 walks and let's, you know, start counting calories and let's do all that stuff. And so there's a time and place in recovery, of course, to completely take everything off and to not be doing anything and focusing on recovery. But there's also, you know, depending on where you're at, an argument for saying it's kind of good to just be in life and to be busy. So it's interesting to hear you say now that this all commenced when you kind of got really bored. And it sounded like you had a lot of extra time, to start maybe analyzing your body or getting fixated on food. So I want to hear how that journey went.
Of course. So that's kind of where it started. And then, so it left me with lots of time. And, you know, at the beginning, like it was pretty good. I spent the first week, I was like, oh, like lying in bed, it feels so nice. Cause they originally had just closed schools for 3 weeks. But then after my first week, you know, at this point I was making pancakes in the morning and in my pajamas till noon. And it was like tons of fun.
And you had a period at this point, right? Like you're completely healthy. There was no disordered eating at this point.
No, I actually didn't have a period, just from like natural, like I've never had a period. Yeah, so I didn't have a period then, just because like if there was no reason for that, like my hormones were healthy, I was well developing and all those things, but I just hadn't actually like reached that point yet, like where I was like gonna naturally get my period.
How old were you when all this was happening?
I think I want to say I was like 12 or 13.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. So you never once had a period?
No, I never have. I was well on my way. I had lots of positive signs and, you know, like.
And this started happening.
Right. And then it kind of, so like I was just well on my way. I was reaching about the age where kind of everyone in my family like had started like, you know, cycling. And then, you know, everything was good at this point. And so, yeah, so my first week of quarantine, it was super nice. Like we had like many movie nights and everything was great. And then that just kind of trickled on and we kept getting school canceled for like a few more weeks and a few more weeks, and all my trips were getting canceled. And so we were really just left with like, you don't leave your house, you can go outside if you want. And so it kind of just started, and I was like, oh, like maybe it'd be nice, because I kind of got sick of like watching TV for 4 hours every morning. So I was like, maybe it'd be nice to start my day and maybe go outside or like you know, do a workout or something. And again, for a really long time, it was a really balanced thing. I would do that in the morning, and then, you know, I had lots of fun in my afternoons. Again, it was pretty balanced. But this just kind of started that trickle effect. So then it was like, okay, like I got really into cooking too, because like baking and cooking, like it takes time, right? And you can do it by yourself and at home. And I was making fun things. I was making like tons of cookies and lots of like, you know, French toast and different like chicken dinners. And it was all like really fun, honestly. But then it kind of started that trickle effect where I was like, oh, like, okay, I have an extra 2 hours. Maybe I'll just go for a walk. And then I was like, oh, well, that was fun. And then I was like, Mom, do you want to go on one after work? Sure, because it kept taking up like an hour at a time. And so my day that had these kind of 16 hours of nothing to do slowly got down to like 10 hours of nothing to do, because I spent so much time like outside or walking or biking or like all of those things. And again, I never really had an issue with my body at the beginning. I never disliked it or had an issue with what it looked like, but I knew how things made me feel, right? Like I felt really energized just naturally, like from the endorphins. But as I started to kind of increase that exercise, I noticed like changes in my body, and I was like, oh, you know, like this is kind of cool, right? But I wasn't too hyper fixated on it. But yeah, and then I started getting into cooking, and like I was like, oh, like I'll just choose like the healthier option, you know, because then I kind of classified myself as like, oh, like I'm being extra active, you know. And then I guess extra active in my head equated to like, oh, like I noticed that when I, you know, maybe choose the salad, I'm like, oh, I'm kind of, my body's changing. And I started to be like, I started to like that. And I started to see more muscle at the time, which I thought was me building muscle, but I think it was just me maybe building a little bit of muscle, but losing fat and exposing my muscles. Yeah. And so that's kind of where it started. And then it just kind of trickled, and just kind of, you know, as these like disordered thoughts came in, they just got worse and worse and worse for a really long time. And, you know, we're in this pandemic, we're just coming out of it where I live kind of now. So it's been a really long time. And so it took like, it just week after week, it just kind of got worse and worse. And we were doing online school and all those sorts of things. So it took me about, like, I would say 6 months to go from this is innocent and fun to, oh no, I'm going to only get a salad when we order takeout. Like, it took me, I'd say, about that long.
It happens so fast, right? And it always does happen very innocently. I don't think there's too many people who actively go, I'm going to start an eating disorder journey right now, and I'm going to start being weird about food and body. It doesn't. It happens so innocently. I was simply just like in high school, and I was like, hey, I don't fit into my like friend's jeans. I want to lose some weight. And so it literally was just an innocent, like, I'm going to like start changing my food a little bit. And then it spiraled into excessive exercise, being totally highly orthorexic with my food and being really obsessed with it and being really like anxious if someone offered me something other than like a raw piece of broccoli or something like that. And yeah, totally like overthinking it. So it is really crazy to see how, you know, what was happening with you as you added in this movement and you started eating in a different way. It started really getting in your head and you started really becoming obsessed with the things that were starting to happen.
Mm-hmm. And I think too, because there was so much, time, it wasn't like, because I used to do a workout and it would feel great. And then I would just move on with my day. Right. And I set me up, I got like a little sweat in, it made me feel good. And then I just moved on. But then when I had nothing to move on to, it was like, oh, well, I guess I could just add in 5 more minutes, because what else am I going to do? And so like, it kind of started like that, where I didn't really realize. Right. But then like, I was like, well, I could just add on 5 more, and it kind of happened time and time and time again. And then, I started to just immerse myself into all of that. Right. And so, yeah, that really, yeah, I'd say it took me like about 6 months. And again, like, it progressively got worse after that too, right? Like, it didn't stop there, but it was after about 6 months where it started to be like, oh, I got like a weird feeling when someone baked cookies in my house. And I was like, oh, and maybe I would eat one, but there was like more thought into it than there had ever been before, rather
It
than like,
wasn't
thanks,
that,
mom.
yeah, it wasn't natural, it wasn't effortless anymore. And again, it caused you to think in your head. And this is where a lot of our problems start, because we start getting in our head about all these things and we overanalyze things, and we're not in our body, where your body was probably like, yes, that's the innate reaction, like, yes, let me just grab the cookie and eat it, thank you, mom. That's your body saying, hey, I want this. This is yummy. This is your mom made it. It's gooey, it's warm, it's perfect, right? But then the brain comes in and messes all of this up. And I really try and teach all of my clients, teach in the course, teach in the community, everything about like coming back to body, come back to your body, come back to your body, instead of being so in your head all the time about everything that's going on and everything that you're eating and what you should eat. I'm like, you don't need to overthink it. The body knows. You need to go back into the body to find that out. So I'm curious if parents started saying anything at this point. Like, at what point was it like, Kate is going through something? And then at what point were you like, I actually need to get help? I can't just like figure this out on my own.
Yeah, for sure. So everything kind of started, like all the pandemic stuff started in March. And then August, I went on just like a family trip, like within my country. We just drove kind of across to where my grandparents live. And we were there, and that's when it first started to notice things. Like, I made pancakes for everyone, and then I made some banana oatmeal mush pancake for me. And, my mom saw that, right? And then obviously I looked quite a bit thinner at this point. And especially like in my face. And this just made me think too, when we first started to like see the weight drop, I was also still growing like in height. And so we kind of joked like as a family and even with myself that it was like a growth spurt, and I had like leaned out. And so I was like, oh, like I lost my bum, because like I've always had like a bit of a bum. And then when we just kind of blamed it on this growth spurt. And I even said things like, I was upset about it, but And so like those kind of things started. So I like family members, like my mom would say like, yeah, like even your face. And so it kind of started off like that. But then I think like my mom works in mental health, so she's very kind of educated in all this stuff. And so she was probably well aware come August that something was up for sure. And so that was the first time when we were on that trip, and my grandma had made salmon for dinner, and I took half of the piece of salmon. Everyone got one, and I took half, and I gave my mom the other half. And she was like, "What's going on? Like, you love salmon." And I was like, "I know, I'm just not like too hungry," is what I said. And then that's kind of, she pulled me aside, and it's the first time she like kind of said something to me. And I was pretty defensive, and I had been throughout this whole time, right? Whenever someone brings something up, it was like, absolutely not. What are you talking about? 8,000 excuses. And then she just kind of looked at me. And so that's the first time that someone brought it up. And then that lasted, that was probably just when it started to get really bad. And then school started in the fall. And so obviously I couldn't do like my 6:30 in the morning workout because I had school at 7:15. So half the days, like I would set an alarm at like 5, and I would do like a hour workout before school, or I would be like really stressed and planning it in my head when to do it when I got home and all those things. And so that actually lasted all throughout until the following May. So I was about a year or more in kind of all of this, to the point where I was eating like egg whites and spinach and maybe mushrooms like chopped in there, fried in water, like awful. And that's kind of where I got, honestly. That was probably like at its peak.
And
And
that's so crazy. I just want to stop you for a second, because in the beginning of this, you were explaining how much you love to cook, you love the different taste and you're having fun with that all. And it sounded like you're making really yummy tasting foods, not only treats and things like that, but you're making lots of meals and stuff like that. And then so interesting that all of a sudden it was all about not eating pleasurable foods and making the egg white omelets, which to a chef is like heresy, right? Like you don't do that, or you don't fluff it with water, like you use cream or you use milk. And it really just showcases how much this disorder is all about that deprivation. You're depriving yourself not only of calories, but you're depriving yourself of pleasure, and you're depriving yourself of connection and not eating with other people anymore, and depriving yourself of of that taste, of the experience of eating, which in and of itself is a really healthy experience. So why we can't just be running around and like not sitting down to eat. It's so beautifully healthy to sit down at the table with family and friends, light the candles, put on soft music to enjoy the eating experience instead of just like rushing through it, or just trying to gag something down because you told yourself that this is what you need to be eating.
Yeah, totally. And, I would do things like pour copious amounts of like parsley or something on my food to be like, oh, I'm seasoning it, right? Like just trying to almost make it, edible at that point. And so, yeah, so that's probably when I was at my worst. And, my mom definitely did not stop. She would say like, oh, like have a bite of this. Like she would try, but obviously like, I don't think like she'd ever been through something like that before. So like I was kind of, the first round of something like this. So some of the things like were like helpful. Obviously some of them I was extraordinarily defensive about. But that's kind of how that started. And then May 1st, I remember exactly. I had seen previously, I bought the book, the No Period Now What book. And so I got that, and because I realized I was like, this isn't right. Like I was like, okay, by now I definitely should have a period, as well as I wasn't quite aware. Like I knew that I didn't look the same as I had before, but obviously I was in no way, like I didn't think I looked
Body dysmorphia.
yeah,
Totally.
crazy. And except for I saw a few pictures, like family pictures, and I zoomed in and I was so embarrassed. My biggest thing was embarrassment. I didn't want to bring it up. And I started to realize when I went to family dinners that people were like talking about me, and I didn't like any of that, right? Like, because I've always been like super, like cheery and helpful and like okay. And, it's perfectly great to have your struggles, but I didn't like kind of being that like taboo conversation or like, topic of conversation. And so kind of all this formulated together, and then I was kind of like humming and hawing through the end of April. I was like, gosh, like I gotta do something here. Like this is not right. Plus, I don't have friends anymore, and or like, I don't have close friends, and I know I'm not enjoying my life. And so May 1st, I decided, I was like, okay, I got the book, and I kind of went, quote unquote, all in. Um, and I stopped exercising. And I had French toast for breakfast, I remember. And I was like, okay, I got a journal, and like I tried to find things to do to fill my morning. And I ended up like going on a walk with my mom, and I kind of told her everything. I was like, this is my plan, and I want to get this book. And I told her all these things. And so that's kind of when it started. And so I actually did. I went all in for May all the way until August.
Wow.
And yeah, I was like, I gained a lot of weight, more than I was comfortable with, but even when I was uncomfortable, I pushed past it. But I had never got external help, right? Like it was all coming from me, and I would try and like talk to my mom about it, but I was really embarrassed. Like I didn't want to kind of be that issue, or I didn't want to be, I didn't want that to become my story. So I didn't tell anyone, and I was doing it alone.
Which I get it. I totally get that like sentiment and that feeling, because I have a big family. It was kind of the same way. I was like, stop talking about me and my weird food stuff. Like it was a lot of like, it felt like a lot of pressure, and it was uncomfortable. And I was used to just being the happy child that like, didn't have a lot of issues. And so to go all of a sudden to being the child with all these issues, it was like kind of uncomfortable. But I do just want to pause here and say that something that I have learned, and obviously because I do this work, I'm just a huge advocate for not feeling that shame for going through this, and that it's nothing to be ashamed about. It is life. We all are given things that we need to go through, different trials, different situations, different experiences, and they're all just here to teach us to grow and to help us become more and more aligned to ourselves if we choose to see it as a growing experience. But I know that there's a lot of shame in that feeling of like, gosh, I can't get this thing called eating down. Like this is a natural human thing. How come I can't get it down? And it's one, remembering that this is not about the food. It's not about the exercise. This is about a lot more going on. And that two, there's nothing to feel ashamed about going through this whole thing. And that, I think it's really helpful when we get rid of that so that we can be vulnerable and open up to others, because it tends to be when we do those things that we actually step into healing.
Yeah, I'm totally nodding my head along here, because I couldn't agree more, especially like with all the progress that I've made now. I think vulnerability is super, super cool, and just opening yourselves up. It doesn't have to be to the world, it doesn't have to be on your social media page, but to your family members or whatever close friends you have. If you're more vulnerable, they might be too. And I really found a lot of, success in that. But at the time, I was not as comfortable in all of this. Yeah, so that's kind of, so I went all in until August, and I want to say like I got a lot of my life back, but I had a very black and white mentality. So I got now completely nervous around biking to the coffee shop with my friends, or like, so I kind of went from like one end of the spectrum all the way to the other one. And again, I didn't really have that support. Like my family, I knew they loved me no matter what, but they had no idea what I was feeling, and I didn't really want to bring it up. And to be honest, by the end of the summer, I had no, like, I would grab all sorts of food, but I would eat like so much food, because I thought that the more that I ate, the faster I get my period back, so I'd feel sick sometimes. And yeah, so
it's a very crazy experience when you're going through it alone. And I remember feeling exactly that way, where I was like, someone just asked me to go on a beach walk. Is that going to mess me up? I can't go on. It's like, that's why in the group, I'm always like, space, guys, a space. Like I'm holding space here for you guys. Just it's opening up, is learning to relax about this whole situation. I'm like, big picture, guys, what are we trying to do? We are trying to just nourish ourselves and to get back into balance and center. Going on a bike ride with your friends, I get it. You're told that movement is bad. And that's what I said almost in the beginning. Remember, I was like, movement's not bad. Movement is not bad. What we don't want to be doing is putting on our gym shoes and going on a 5-hour run right now. That's not what we want to be doing. But anything that enhances life, like a beach walk with friends or biking to the coffee shop, those things aren't things to be feared. And I feel like a lot of the recovery space can be based on a lot of fear. Well, you can't do this now. And just like you can never not order a burger or things like that. And I'm like, okay, I definitely take the route of love, which hopefully you get from the course and you get from the community of like, I'm always about like, enjoy your life, go from a place of love, don't overthink things, don't put on the like microscopic glasses here, like always take a macro view of what's going on. And I think that helps alleviate a lot of the anxiety, because that anxiety in and of itself of, should I bike with my friends? I don't know. Is that too much? Am I going to totally radically throw my recovery off? That right there just threw your recovery off, not the biking. The biking would have been fine. Again, I'm not advocating for going on a 20-mile bike ride up a bunch of hills. I'm saying a bike to the coffee shop, a couple blocks, right? That's way different. And the stress that we can have over that, which is natural, right? You're going through this whole recovery process. I totally get it. But that's why it is helpful, or at least I've seen in my clients, it's helpful for them to be around me, because I'm very calm about all of it. And I'm like, no, it's okay. Let's breathe through this. Let's create space in this moment, because you're getting really stressed about it. And I'm more just like, I know overall, if you start doing these things, the period will come back.
Yeah.
And you can like kind of, now that I've been through it, I'm like, I can breathe into that. But in the moment, it's like, no.
Yeah, it can be so stressful. And when you're going through it alone too, like you have no guidance. So you're just kind of going off whatever you've heard, which is like, minimum 2,500 calories, no exercise, all these things. It's almost like it's like some rule book. And so breaking the rule, it's stressful.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Can I pause for a second and talk about this? Because I don't think I've talked about this in a while. So let me get very clear here. I want you guys to really hear me out when I say this. If you try and recover in a structured way, I can guarantee you that you will not recover. Will you maybe gain weight? Will you maybe have improvements in some things? Yes. Will you recover? No. You will not recover until you learn to let go and flow with the chaos of life. You need to have those moments where extreme hunger just comes about. So it's not about just like, let me reach 2,500 calories exactly. I'm like, you need to play with your hunger. You need to allow for extreme hunger to come when it happens. You need to allow for there to be more of that food. You need to be okay with the fact that you're not going to just reach this one number of weight, but rather that your weight's going to go up and down and all around, and it's going to change and go way more than you think it's going to go. And that really is recovery right there, is learning to let go of the unknown. And if you're trying to structurally, or, I should say in a rigid way, try to recover, it's the same blocks. It's the same exact blocks. So letting go into freedom is what we're trying to find here. Anyways, I just wanted to put in those 2 cents because I think it's so important, because I see so many people, especially, and I love the book. Oh my gosh, I love No Period Now What. Such a huge support and help in my own journey and for so many thousands of women. So this is not a critique on the book, but it is one thing that I've noticed, is that it becomes a very like checklist rules type of based thing. And I personally, and if you're here, you probably resonate with my kind of philosophy on doing things. I personally take a way more, I think, holistic, just like life spiritual approach to this whole recovery, and realize that it's a lot more than a checklist.
Yeah, no, for sure. So that's exactly what happened to me, honestly. Like I kind of took what I had as kind of disordered before, and I kind of did the same thing, but just on the other side. So you're so right. Like I gained weight, I was uncomfortable. And I even I was closer with my best friend that I had ever been. We had sleepovers, 6 or 7 nights of the week. Like it was really great, but I wouldn't at all say like I was recovered, and I didn't feel guilty or anything for eating, but I still saw food as kind of like this thing, whether it was
control
like bad or it was good. It was always a thing, right? And so by August, it had now been, I think it was 5 or 6 months since I had 5 months, I think, since I had gone all in. And I was like, where is this dang period? Like I was really kind of just getting frustrated. And I went on a vacation with my family to New Brunswick. And I was like, you know what? Like this is really difficult. I want to go on a walk on by the ocean. Like that just sounds really fun, you know? And that's what happened, right? And it just started off like that. And I would never say I fully, like I didn't spiral too far back, but what happened was um I just got fed up, right? Because I just was still so black and white in my thinking that I still got to a place where it was like, okay, now I see movement as kind of still me being healthy. And I still see like me eating as like getting me closer or further from a period. Like I just saw everything way more complicated than it needed to be. And so I was like, you know what, I'm done. And I kind of told myself I was just going to let it happen when it happens. So I kind of took a step back. I was like, I can go on a walk if I want. I can go on a run if I want. I can play sports if I want. And so I did all those things. But obviously, because I wasn't recovered, I did kind of spiral back a little bit. And I got to a point where I was still like at a much healthier body weight than I was at kind of a very
Well,
great.
you had done a lot of work. You just
Right.
didn't touch on the more energetical, spiritual, underlying root cause of things. And so
Exactly.
that feeling of I still need to control and be on top of everything, even if it was on top of recovery, this was still playing out. And I saw this in my own journey, right? It's like anorexia to orthorexia to exercise addiction. It was like, I kept on just translating the same root cause things to different things. This is just a reminder that you don't have to do recovery alone, and recovery doesn't have to be a bunch of doubts, fears, anxieties, and question marks. Rather, when you join a group of women who are committed to recover, you can feel supported, you can feel guided, you can feel held, you can feel seen, you can feel heard, which makes literally all of the difference. The Get Your Flow On course is led by me. There are 10 juicy, in-depth modules that go over everything from amenorrhea to diet culture to your metabolism to developing a beautiful relationship with food, how to deal with weight gain and cultivating positive body image, and so much more. If you are looking to recover, this is your invitation to join the Get Your Flow On course. I've been getting messages like this in the community all of the time. Someone said, very grateful for the community and for all the work Chloe puts into teaching us health and freedom and so much more. Then someone responded, yes, I feel so lucky to have come across your resources, Chloe. I seriously think they are life-changing. I feel a change in myself, not only towards food and my ED, but life in general, and I'm starting to see that it's all so connected. I really feel how healing this journey is, and it's only the start. Someone else wrote in and said, had a party this afternoon for a friend's son's 4th birthday. I bought the cake, and yes, I had a slice. Chloe is so right. There's something about avoiding cake at a birthday party that makes you feel isolated and disconnected from other people. So glad I was able to enjoy and partake in all of the fun. And she is not the only person that is partaking in the fun and the pleasures of eating. Look at all of these wins that we've been having in the group of people going out there and eating their fair food, challenging their eating disorder voice, and taking like 500 steps closer to this land of freedom and full recovery. So again, if you are ready to join me and 40 plus other women in the Get Your Flow On course and community, make sure you click the link down below. But let's just get back to hear what Kate has to say.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what happened. So then it kind of came like till December and I was like, okay, well, I'm definitely not getting my period now. Like I'm working out and I'm walking and I'm, like I'm eating salads. I was not like I wasn't restricting, but I wasn't like purposely like adding in that extra piece of bread. Right. And so that's kind of where that started. And I honestly, it just kind of got to a point where I was like, I have to do something. And whatever I did before clearly didn't work because I ended up kind of right where I started, except for this time I don't look bad. And I'm using air quotes here. So I was like, people won't know and, all these things, but I was like, this still isn't good. Like I still go to a restaurant and I'm like thinking about the menu more than person should think
Mm.
about a menu. And I was like, okay, I really have to do something. And that's
And
what
you have
brought
to
me to you.
and you have to validate those internal struggles. I see that with a lot of people who come to me who they're like, I'm at a normal weight. I'm like, okay, but you can still have a disordered relationship with food at a normal weight. Like, you don't have to be emaciated and 80 pounds to have an eating disorder. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
you deserve recovery, and you're completely valid in saying, hey, this is not how I want to live my life. And I
So
think
it's
it's really hard too when I like see people who come to me and they're like, well, I have my period. And I'm like, that's cool. That's not the only thing we're looking for in recovery. And again, the no period now what does focus a lot on just get the period. And I'm focusing more on, because she's not necessarily talking to girls with eating disorders. I think that is a very important distinction. She's more just like, hey, a lot of girls from being up too athletic and stuff like that will lose their period. But like when you're struggling with like the eating disorder side of things, you have to really understand that this is not just a recovery of the menstrual cycle. And you can get your period back, but it doesn't mean that you have food freedom. And it doesn't mean that you're at your natural set point weight either. And it doesn't mean a lot of things. So it can be a good step if you finally start eating a little bit more and period comes back. It's like, yay, okay, things are starting to happen. But I see a lot of people quickly go back into exercising, under eating, doing all this stuff right after getting their first period, or they just think that recovery is done and that they don't need to continue working on their food. And that's why the course, oddly enough, even though it's to get your period back, I have one module with 2 lessons in it that talks about your period. One of them talks about amenorrhea. That's it. It's not a lot, because I'm like, that's not really, yes, it's a thing that we're wanting to reach for and get, but it's not the end all be all. And
there's
like,
so many things in the way, right? Like so many things are blocking that you kind of have to push out of the way. And once you do, your body will kind of give you that, you know?
it will. And that's why I'm like, there's not really, there is an emphasis on period, of course, but then also not. I mean, you probably sense that from the course where it's like, wow, we're talking about all these other different things. It's like, what does this have to do with it? I'm like, it has everything to do with it. You just don't know yet.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, the course was exactly and everything and more than I had ever wanted it or even imagined it to be. And it was phenomenal. Yeah. So what happened is I kind of, I had found resources in that book, like for social media pages, and I had looked it up and I had come across your account on Instagram and I was like, wow. I was originally attracted to the beautiful sun and all the pictures and just the gorgeous photos. I was like, this is pretty. And then I kind of started, I was like, wow, I love this. And like, I like just the broad and just balanced aspect about it, right? Like it wasn't, everything just felt really comforting whenever I kind of came to your Instagram page. And so then I saw all the things about the course and I joined, and while it was the best thing I have probably ever done, because I had been doing it alone for so long and no one was around me who kind of knew what was going on, or they knew, but they weren't helpful. Just because they couldn't relate, they were loving, but that only got them so far. So then I started to, I just was like, if I'm going to do this, like I'm going to do this once and for all. And so I joined the course, and it is just, I don't even know how to describe it. It's a group full of women that I feel like I can just say anything and everything and I won't be judged. And it's so nice too, because it's a place that's so safe, where sometimes I don't want to say things to my friends or my family because again, I don't want that to necessarily be our topic of conversation all the time. I want kind of this group to be kind of that perfect place for me. And then I can live my life kind of, around that. And so this group is phenomenal because I don't have a filter. Like I say anything that's going through my head, and they say everything back. You get all the advice and all the support and tons of laughs and tons of cries. And it's just, it's really cool. And you for once feel like someone understands what you're feeling. And if you're having a bad day or you're, struggling with something, all of a sudden I have, 15 girls saying like, you got this, you're strong, your body's loving you. Like, don't give up. It's right before the success. And all of a sudden, like I said the other night, I had eaten a steak for the first time in a long time. And I wrote, I've never felt better about eating a steak. Not even like I never felt too bad about it, but I had all these girls just telling me that it was so phenomenal. I was just so encouraged. I wanted to go eat another one, you
Totally,
know?
they're encouraging, and it was a beautiful picture. She put a picture up, and I love how pictures and videos and everything get put in the group, and it's really just like, yeah, it's so cool to see, and it does make you feel like, oh wait, that's right. You know, if my eating disorder voice all of a sudden comes up of being like, that was wrong, you shouldn't have done that, it's like so quieted by the like huge amount of noise in the community that's like, that was the best thing you could have ever done, right? And
Yeah.
so it really is so, I feel like, key to have that, because that eating disorder voice can be really loud, but to have like, it's 40 plus women now in the group, so to have like 40 plus women that are there saying healthy stuff back at you, it's like, oh, well, your eating sort of just lost. I'm sorry. You cannot hear it over the
40 to
noise
1.
of these like really beautiful, badass women who are there to like really fully all their energy just go into supporting and congratulating you for doing that. And
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. And I know for me too, because I have like, my family at home and I, have lots of friends and all those kinds of things. But sometimes it can just be hard to kind of say things to people who don't understand, whether that's a fear of, what they're going to think or what they're going to say back. But having like just having you, honestly, it's amazing. It's just like you finally have someone saying, I hear you, I understand you, like this is like you're on the right track. It is hard, but you got this. Like it just I can release so much stress, because I try and explain things, but anytime I try and even say something like to my mom or something, I start crying because I don't know if I'm feeling a sense of judgment or what it is, but I don't get any of that with the group. And so it's really awesome. And all my questions are answered and I feel really kind of sure about what's going on. And yeah, it's a dream come true, really.
oh, well, you've been such a beautiful aspect of the community. Like, I mean, so many of you girls are just like such beautiful energies and super active. And you can tell it's like, it's the ones who are really, really active in the community that are making huge, huge, huge results. What was I going to say? There's something else I was going to say about this. Oh, yeah, just the fact that like, I know this is really, really helpful for a lot of people, but like you guys get 24/7 access to me, which is
Oh
something
my gosh,
that
it's like winning the lottery.
yeah, right. Well, and I finally started, I mean, I can open up my Instagram account on any given day and there's like 50 plus messages. And I love you guys. I really, really do. I love that I can be there. I can't give my time and energy in that way anymore, right? But with the course, it's so great because I'm just like, this is what I'm dedicating. Like, I am dedicating my life to holding space for the girls in the course. And so my life is now just let me be uber present here, which means that I can't be present answering a bunch of Instagram messages and comments and things like that. I try to do my best, but I'm like, if you want full on access to me, you
Yeah,
can
no.
get it via the course because I'm there literally 24/7. It's the first thing I do when I wake up. I'm checking, it's on my computer open all the time. I'm always answering messages. I'm private messaging everyone and I'm publicly messaging people. I'm just like, it's just finally so great for me to have this space where it's like, I work one-on-one with people and it's great. And with my one-on-one clients, I do work with them a little bit throughout the week. Like they'll send me a message or check in or things like that. But this is like the first time in my career that I've had this like, it is a 24/7 support where you can go in at any time. And if I'm not there, if I'm sleeping, someone else is there
Oh
and
yeah.
like answering stuff. So it's not even just like me. And so someone is awake. With people in Australia, people in Canada, people in Europe. We have people from everywhere. So someone is awake at that time, but also just me being able to like, you're battling with this every single day. And so it's like, you don't need me just once every 2 weeks. A lot of people need support and they need that mentorship every single day, multiple times a day. And again, it's so cool to finally have figured out how I can do that for people. It's like, great,
Absolutely,
now
yeah.
let's get you in this community where you are going to get that. So if you are, say, eating the steak if you sit down and you're so nervous, you can quickly hop onto Vibely, quickly send a message, and quickly get a response back of like, this is the best thing you can do, breathe into this.
Absolutely. And even you know, with the modules, that's a whole other, those are phenomenal too. It's like you're reading this amazing textbook, well, I guess you're listening to it, but of knowledge and just reassurance, and it's really awesome. But even now, just after like what is it, a month and a bit since, or maybe, yeah, I think just a month and a bit kind of since it first opened, and I feel like this time it's like I'm getting past a lot of, like, I think, like, I guess I'm recovering is what it feels like. You know, it's no longer just switching it from, you know, okay, I guess we're going to go from eating nothing and working out as much as I can to let's go to the opposite and let's eat as much as I can and do absolutely zero movement. And now I feel like I'm just getting way past that. And I feel like I don't even talk about that anymore. And I'm just like reaching this kind of inner part where it's like everything is okay. And I'm kind of learning about myself and about other people. And it's just taken it far beyond like just those, you know, surface kind of problems. And I like, I have hope, you know, it's really cool. And like, even now within a month, like I feel like really nourished. I have no problem this morning for breakfast, or all week I've been having like thick sourdough with butter and then avocado and then tomatoes and eggs and cheese. And like, and there's no thought about it. And I'm not eating like tons of vegetables to the point I feel sick. And I head to school and I start my day, you know, and that all happened in a matter of a month. And it's really cool and it's really helpful.
The downloads happen fast when you're given the right tools. And that's why like I'm looking, I mean, this is, to be honest, like this is a part of my spiritual journey and my evolution through life, is now being at this place where I can give back. But I myself went through so much pain and it took me so many years to get over this. It was over a decade. I actually was talking to my mom. I thought that my eating disorder had started at 14. She was like, no, at 12 years old, you were showing really unhealthy signs of with food and with body and with exercise. It's like, oh, so interesting. I like completely even didn't realize that that's what was going on. She was like, we like really started noticing and really started like talking about it when you were 14, but it was really when you were like 12. So I'm like, okay, so it was almost like 14, 15 years of me struggling through this. And it was such a, I mean, it was such a hard long season of my life. And it's just like really beautiful to now be at that place in my life where I'm able to, okay, take everything that I learned through my journey and to give it to you guys in this beautiful packaging, and to create that space and the community for you guys to go through this process a lot faster. And, you know, it really is not about, you know, just getting to a destination, let's just race and get recovered in a month, because a lot of these things are long-term things, right? Like we are constantly and will always be evolving our relationship with body and learning how to be in our body. That's like a lifelong journey, right? But that pain that people are in, yeah, let's get you out of that pain. And the whole like journey might take, you know, it doesn't need to take a month for you, but can you really start processing through that and make this a lot faster and quicker than it needs to be? Because you shouldn't be suffering with this for 15 years. If you're going, if you've been trying to quote unquote recover, I hate the word quasi recovery. It's like, I was in quasi recovery for 7 years. It's like, no, you were completely disordered for 7 years. That's not even, because recovery shouldn't take that long. So if you're like, you know, 4 years, 5 years, 7 years down the road, something needs to change, right? Like you need
Join
to
the
get
course.
support. Yeah, and like you need to get support, you need to get help, you need to learn more, you need to understand that. I love how you said, you're like, I'm not even thinking about the eating part anymore. Like that's not what this is about. And that's, while I talk about that in the course of course, sorry, I talk about that, of course, but I also really, in everything that I say and like all the comments that I make in the group, I'm really trying to make you guys see that it's not about that, and that it's the fixation on those two things that's actually causing a lot of the pain. And when we heal all that more internal stuff, well, that's all the juicy things that I know, when we heal those things, you naturally are going to reach for the butter on top of your bread. Like that's not, when you understand yourself, when you've connected to yourself, where you've learned to dance into your feminine energy, that's just like, it's a natural response. Of course, I'm going to take care of myself, or I feel really drained right now. And when you're in your body and when you're focusing on that feminine energy is all about nurturing. It's all about rebalancing out. It's all about dancing with life. And so she has no problems or qualms with resting and taking a nap or having a nice bubble bath. Like, she has no problem with that. So if I can just connect you to your feminine energy, these actions are something that's coming now, not from a checklist, but rather from within. I desire to rest, not I was told that I need to rest because I'm not allowed to move. It's like, whoa, way different energy. Way different energy.
And like you were saying earlier, like I totally agree with kind of the, everything you can go through what you do and take from it kind of what you wish. And so like I think what I went through, like, I have like hopes in the future, like with what I kind of want to do. And like I've thought about kind of starting like my own sort of, business of some sort. Cause I truly do think like, I could go through things like this and I feel like I've just learned so much and I see, like what society has done to so many people around me. And, one of the things I said in the group the other day was I find it mind boggling that, we've gotten to a point where people, have this kind of hunger in their stomach and they go, oh, well, I ate an hour ago. So like I shouldn't eat now. And I'm just thinking like your body is biologically designed to like have a grumble in its stomach when it's like needing energy. And like we've gotten to this place where like you go, oh, well, I ate an hour ago, so I can't eat now. And I notice it all over the place. I notice it like with my family and with my friends. And it's just like, I ask myself, when I'm 60 or when I'm 70, like, do I want to be saying like, do I want to be thinking about my life, remembering the times I'd gone out and gotten a salad or didn't go out out of fear of the restaurant? Or do I want to remember the times I fully immersed myself like into life and just enjoyed it, or, didn't fear about anything? And so that's kind of just have become my why about kind of why I'm going through this. But like it just has gotten me to a whole new mindset, and like there's something I want to do with
it. Entertain that. Entertain it. You never know where it's going to take you. I did actually, surprisingly, I did a lot of my training before I was fully recovered. Like, I studied dynamic eating psychology, mind body nutrition. I went to the Institute for the Psychology of Eating, and then I became a therapeutic nutrition counselor. I studied public health, an emphasis in women's health. Like, I did a lot of that stuff as it was honestly like a part of my healing. Like when I was learning about, dynamic eating psychology and how our thoughts and feelings and beliefs are impacting our body and how to deal with our relationship with food and how to improve it and all that. That was me healing myself, going through all those things. And then once I finally was able to implement all of that work into my life, that's when I was like, I'm ready to actually teach this to other people now. But anyways, it's a beautiful, not everyone needs to, but it is a beautiful experience when you've gone through something and you choose to give back and choose to be that beacon of light for other people. You don't have to do it. A lot of people just want to, I'm done with this. Great. I'm going to go be an architect. I'm like, fuck yeah, go and do that. Forget about food. I do have to say that I did for a little bit, not now, but a little bit closer to my recovery, to when I first recovered. I was a little bit like, I don't even want to talk about food. I'm done with this. I don't want to do a business in this, because it was like, this isn't like, I'm done. I don't want to talk about this. Like, I don't care what people eat. And I did go through that moment, but then it did come back into like, no, this is like what I want to do.
Thanks for those thoughts for coming back, because honestly,
yeah,
it's a lifesaver, quite literally.
Well, but I came back in a different way. I came back in I hardly ever, when I'm like working one-on-one with someone, hardly ever talk about food. It doesn't come up for a long time. Because I'm like, I figured out that there's a lot of other things to be working on. And again, the food is important. We do have to like put some emphasis on it, right?
And when I narrow my story back, like I link it to like control, right? The whole world around me changed. And I couldn't control anything. My trips were getting canceled like in the blink of an eye, and everything was going on. And I was like, I needed something to control, and that's what I chose, right? And so linking back, that's to me like where my battle has to come in, control around everything, even right now, which I'm working on. But it's kind of cool to be able to see things that way too.
100%. Well, this has been amazing, and we're going to wrap it up here, but I do want to hear, because I'm just personally very curious, what has been your favorite module in the course, or maybe your favorite lesson that you learned, just overall, from more or less the community side and more like the course side? Because there's 10 really in-depth modules here. Yeah, I can't say to face. The modules are really deep. Like, I did not go superficial on anything. I was like, you want to actually heal? We're doing this thing. We're diving into this. So I'm curious if there was one particular thing that you were like, wow, I needed that.
Okay, so far I haven't made it through them all, because I tell you, everyone, they are phenomenal. And sometimes I like back them up and I listen to that half an hour like again, because my jaws drop the whole time, but I loved, honestly, the very first, like, visualizing your healthy self was this really cool, like, it almost felt like an out of body yet a really in body experience. It took me 2 days, and I went through all the questions. I put relaxation music in my ears, and I had a candle lit, and I just wrote more than I've written in so long. And it was like I just revealed this hope, and that's how I describe it. It was like, for the first time ever, I had this moment, and I messaged Chloe with this kind of little testimonial of, please join this group, because I had this moment of like, it's going to happen for me, like I will recover. So that was one. But then I also loved the reasons, or how my life changed. I don't remember the wording, but like how my life changed after I left diet culture.
It was the like top
Or
15 things I learned from leaving diet culture. So we went through a whole lesson, which was, I think, like 75 minutes long, in depth, of discussing diet culture, because there's a lot of things to say there. But then I wanted to give a like
busts every myth you can think of. Like, you feel really good walking out of that one.
Well, and just really clear about what's going on, because I think a lot of us just don't see it. We're like, oh, another LLM company just like promoting these detox things. It's like we don't even register it. But then I did want to go through and put like, hey, these were the big life lessons I learned once I stepped away and I looked back at my kind of relationship with diet culture. And yeah, I had a lot of fun creating that one.